We think we know what big looks like. We look at a blue whale or an African elephant and imagine we've seen the peak of biological engineering. We are wrong. Millions of years before humans took their first breath, Earth was a laboratory of nightmares and majesty. A world where the ground didn't just shake, it groaned under the weight of titans. From shadows in the deep ocean to wings that eclipsed the sun, nature once pushed the limits of physics to create monsters that defy logic. Today, we aren't just looking at fossils. We are resurrecting the 20 most terrifying, massive, and awe-inspiring giants to ever walk, swim, or fly on this planet. Lock your doors, look at the sky, because for the next hour, we are no longer at the top of the food chain. 1. Therizinosaurus, the scythe lizard. Imagine a creature that looks like a cross between a giant ground sloth and a nightmarish bird, standing over 10 meters tall. But your eyes wouldn't settle on its pot-bellied frame. They would be glued to its hands. Therizinosaurus possessed the longest claws in the history of life on Earth. Massive, scythe-like blades that reached up to 1 meter in length. For decades, paleontologists thought these were the ribs of a giant turtle. In reality, they belonged to a dinosaur that traded speed for sheer intimidation. While it was likely a herbivore, using those blades to pull down high branches, one swipe from those 3-foot keratin-sheathed swords could disembowel a tyrannosaur. It is the ultimate example of evolutionary overkill. A peaceful giant armed with the weaponry of a slasher movie villain. 2nd, Deinocheirus, the horrible hand. For 50 years, all we knew of this creature were 2 massive, 8-foot arms found in the Gobi Desert. They called it Deinocheirus, the horrible hand. When the full skeleton was finally discovered in 2014, the reality was weirder than anyone predicted. This was the giant duck of the Cretaceous. Stretching 11 meters long and weighing 6 tons, it featured a massive hump on its back, a toothless duckbill, and a flared tail. It was an opportunistic giant, trekking through wetlands, vacuuming up fish and plants alike. It didn't need to be a traditional hunter. Its sheer size and those massive clawed arms were enough to keep the apex predators of Mongolia at a respectful distance. It is a biological mosaic, a creature that proves nature has a dark sense of humor. 3rd, Titanoboa, the monster snake. 60 million years ago, in the steaming jungles of what is now Colombia, the heat allowed for a nightmare to grow to impossible proportions. Meet Titanoboa. At 13 to 15 meters long and weighing over a ton, this wasn't just a snake. It was a living pressure cooker. It was as thick as a human waist and longer than a city bus. Titanoboa didn't kill with venom. It killed with gravity. If this serpent coiled around you, the pressure would be equivalent to having the Brooklyn Bridge collapse on your chest. It ruled a world that was significantly hotter than ours, lurking in the murky rivers to ambush prehistoric crocodiles. In its domain, it was the undisputed king of the sludge, a silent, slithering wall of pure muscle that could swallow a man without even stretching its jaws to their limit. 4th, Megatherium, the elephant-sized sloth. When we think of sloths, we think of slow, tiny creatures hanging from trees. Megatherium was different. This was the giant ground sloth, a 6-ton beast that stood 6 meters tall when it reared up on its hind legs. It was as large as a modern bull elephant, but with a terrifying twist. It had massive, curved claws designed for stripping bark and potentially defending itself against saber-toothed cats. Living during the Pleistocene, Megatherium was a tank of the Americas. Its bones were incredibly dense, and its hide was reinforced with tiny bony plates called osteoderms, making it virtually bulletproof to the predators of its time. While mostly a vegetarian, some scientists suggest it might have used its massive strength to scavenge carcasses, bullying smaller hunters away from their kills. It is the moment where cute and slow becomes massive and unstoppable. Fifth, Mosasaurus, the ultimate marine apex. If the T-Rex was the king of the land, the Mosasaurus was the undisputed god of the abyss. This wasn't a fish or a whale. It was a terrifyingly adapted monitor lizard that returned to the sea to claim the throne. Stretching up to 17 meters, it moved through the water with the grace of a shark and the power of a locomotive. Its most horrifying feature was a second set of teeth on its upper palate, angled backward. Once you were in its mouth, there was no physical way to slide back out. It fed on everything from giant sharks to other mosasaurs. It lived in a world of constant combat, a sleek, scaly torpedo that turned the Cretaceous oceans into a theater of carnage. When a Mosasaurus broke the surface, it wasn't just a spectacle. It was a reminder that in the water, you are nothing but prey. 6. Leadsichthys, the Leviathan of fish. Forget the great white. Meet Leadsichthys, a fish so massive it challenges our understanding of marine biology. Estimates suggest this titan reached lengths of 16 to 22 meters, making it the largest bony fish to ever swim. Despite its staggering size, Leadsichthys followed the path of the modern blue whale. It was a gentle giant, a filter feeder that sieved tons of plankton through specialized, mesh-like gill rakers. But being gentle didn't mean it was defenseless. Its sheer bulk made it a living island. A single flick of its tail could generate enough force to stun a predator or capsize a small vessel. It cruised the Jurassic seas like a slow-moving mountain, a testament to an era where nature had enough resources to support biological masterpieces of impossible proportions. 7. Kronosaurus, the crushing trap. Named after the titan Cronus, who devoured his own children, the Kronosaurus was built for one thing: total destruction. This was a pliosaur, a short-necked marine reptile that was essentially a 10-meter-long, muscle-bound engine of aggression. 1/3 of its body was its head, a massive 2-meter skull packed with teeth the size of bananas. It didn't nip or tear, it crushed. Its bite force surpassed almost anything in the modern world, designed to snap the shells of giant sea turtles and crush the vertebrae of long-necked plesiosaurs like they were dry twigs. It patrolled the deep, cold waters, using its 4 massive flippers to lunge from the darkness. In the realm of Kronosaurus, there were no survivors, only victims of the most efficient biological trap ever devised. 8th, Shastasaurus, the giant dolphin reptile. Shastasaurus holds the record as the largest marine reptile ever discovered, reaching a mind-blowing 21 meters in length. Imagine an ichthyosaur, a creature shaped like a dolphin, but scaled up to the size of a submarine. What makes Shastasaurus truly bizarre is that it was a suction feeder. It didn't have a mouth full of daggers. Instead, it had a short, toothless snout that worked like a high-powered vacuum. It would dive deep into the Triassic oceans, inhaling schools of squid and soft-bodied cephalopods in a single gulp. It was a creature of silent majesty, a streamlined titan that proved you didn't need to be a monster of teeth to be the master of the deep. It was the peak of its lineage, a sleek giant that vanished, leaving only massive fossils to tell its tale. But the horror wasn't confined to the water. If you looked to the sky hoping for safety, you'd find that gravity had no power here. The very air was occupied by shadows large enough to eclipse the sun. 9th, Quetzalcoatlus, the sovereign of the air. Standing on the ground, Quetzalcoatlus was as tall as a modern giraffe, but when it unfurled its wings, it transformed into a living aircraft with a wingspan exceeding 10 meters. It was the largest flying animal to ever exist. For years, we thought they behaved like giant seagulls, but the truth is much scarier. Quetzalcoatlus was a terrestrial stalker. It would land on its folded wings and walk across the plains on all fours, using its spear-like beak to snatch up small dinosaurs and mammals. It was a predator that controlled both dimensions, a nightmare that could drop from the clouds or chase you down on land. In the late Cretaceous, nowhere was safe from the reach of the Sky King. 10. Hatzegopteryx, the flying tank. If Quetzalcoatlus was an elegant glider, Hatzegopteryx was a heavy-duty brawler. Living on what was then the island of Hatzeg, this pterosaur evolved into the island's apex predator because there were no large theropods to stop it. It was built with a much thicker, reinforced skull and a neck so wide it was practically indestructible. While other pterosaurs were lightweight, Hatzegopteryx was a brute, capable of tackling prey much larger than itself. It was the heavy cavalry of the sky, a massive, feathered monster that would descend like a falling mountain to crush its prey. It represents a terrifying deviation in evolution, a flyer that traded grace for pure, unadulterated power. 11. Argentavus, the magnificent wing. 6 million years ago, the skies of South America were home to Argentavus magnificens, the largest flying bird in history. With a 7-meter wingspan, it was a true giant of the avian world, weighing as much as a full-grown man. Unlike the pterosaurs, this was a feathered raptor, a relative of modern vultures but on an apocalyptic scale. It was a master of the thermals, using its massive wings to soar for hundreds of miles without flapping once. With its sharp talons and a beak designed for tearing, it patrolled the pampas, looking for any sign of life or a fresh carcass. Argentavus was a testament to the power of the wind, a creature that turned the sky into a throne from which it watched the world below. 12th, Pelagornis, the serrated voyager. Pelagornis was the ghost of the ancient oceans. This bird possessed a wingspan of over 6 meters, but its most chilling feature was its beak. It was lined with bony, tooth-like projections called pseudoteeth. These weren't true teeth, but they were perfectly evolved for one purpose: gripping slippery fish and squid while flying at high speeds over the waves. Pelagornis was a nomadic traveler, spending months at a time at sea, barely touching land. It was a masterpiece of aeronautics, a giant white shadow that could navigate the harshest storms. To any fish near the surface, Pelagornis was the last thing they would ever see, a feathered reaper with a jaw built for the hunt. We've seen the giants of the sea and the masters of the air, but now the ground begins to tremble. We are entering the territory of the true kings, the predators whose names still echo in our nightmares. 13th, Tyrannosaurus rex, the king of fear. The tyrant lizard king needs no introduction, but his reality is far more terrifying than the movies. T-Rex was a 9-ton biological siege engine. Its bite force was legendary, nearly 6 tons of pressure, enough to shatter a car or crush the bones of a triceratops like a dry twig. But it wasn't just a mindless brute. T-Rex had some of the best senses in the dinosaur kingdom, with a sense of smell that could track you from miles away, and binocular vision better than a modern eagle. It was a perfect blend of power and intelligence, a heavy-hitting gladiator that stood at the absolute peak of the food chain. When a T-Rex roared, it wasn't just a sound. It was the voice of a god that ruled by right of slaughter. 14th, Spinosaurus, the river slayer. Spinosaurus is a creature that defies the rules. Stretching up to 18 meters, it was longer than the T-Rex and holds the title of the largest carnivorous dinosaur ever discovered. With a massive sail on its back and a tail shaped like a giant paddle, it was the first dinosaur we know of that was truly at home in the water. Its long, crocodile-like snout was filled with conical teeth, perfect for snagging 8-foot-long sawfish. But on land, it was equally dangerous, armed with massive hooked claws that could disembowel a rival in a single swipe. It was a semi-aquatic nightmare, a dragon made of muscle and scales that ruled the river systems of ancient Africa with an iron grip. 15th, Giganotosaurus, the southern giant. Deep in the prehistoric plains of South America lived a predator that made even the T-Rex look sleek. Giganotosaurus was a massive 8-ton killer that specialized in a different kind of lethality. While it lacked the bone-crushing bite of its northern cousins, it possessed a jaw full of serrated, blade-like teeth designed for slice-and-bleed attacks. It was faster and more agile, likely hunting in family packs to bring down the largest sauropods on the planet. Imagine a pack of monsters, each the size of a house, working together to carve flesh from a living giant. Giganotosaurus was a high-speed pursuit predator that turned the world into its personal buffet. 16th, Carcharodontosaurus, the shark-toothed titan. Its name means shark-toothed lizard, and it is one of the most formidable killers to ever walk the earth. Carcharodontosaurus was a contemporary of the Spinosaurus, competing for dominance in a land of giants. Reaching 13 meters in length, its skull alone was nearly the size of a human. Its teeth were thin, sharp, and serrated, perfect for ripping through flesh with surgical precision. It was a specialist in massive trauma, an apex predator that didn't need to crush your bones when it could simply open a wound that would never close. It was the silent, massive shadow of the North African deserts, a predator that proved that even in a world of giants, there is always something bigger and hungrier. We have reached the end of the line. Beyond the teeth and the claws lies a scale of existence that breaks the laws of biology. These are the absolute titans, creatures so large they didn't live on the landscape, they were the landscape. 17th, Argentinosaurus, the 100-ton ghost. To look at an Argentinosaurus is to look at a skyscraper made of muscle and bone. This was likely the heaviest land animal to ever exist, with estimates pushing its weight to a staggering 100 tons. It was so large that its heartbeat could be felt through the ground from hundreds of meters away. A single footprint of this creature was a miniature ecosystem. It didn't have to fear predators. Nothing in the history of life was brave enough to attack a healthy adult. It spent its life as a slow-moving mountain, consuming hundreds of pounds of vegetation every single hour just to keep its massive heart beating. It is the ultimate expression of biological scale, a creature that turned the Earth into its personal playground. 18th, Patagotitan, the proven giant. While other giants are often known from fragments, Patagotitan is our most complete look at a true titan. Discovered in Patagonia, this Titan of the South reached 37 meters in length. It was so large that when its bones were first brought into a museum, they couldn't even fit in the largest room. Patagotitan represents the absolute limit of what a four-legged animal can achieve before gravity becomes its greatest enemy. Every step it took was a feat of engineering, with bones hollowed out to save weight, but strong enough to support the mass of a dozen elephants. It was a peaceful behemoth, a living bridge between the earth and the sky that dominated the horizon for millions of years. 19th, Dreadnoughtus, the fearless tank. Its name means fears nothing, and for a good reason. Dreadnoughtus was a 65-ton fortress of bone. What makes this dinosaur special is its incredible density. Unlike other sauropods that were long and lean, Dreadnoughtus was built like a tank. Its neck was thick, its chest was broad, and its tail was a massive club of muscle that could shatter the skull of any predator with a single swing. It lived in a state of perpetual immunity. Once it reached adulthood, it was virtually invincible. It didn't need to run, and it didn't need to hide. It simply stood its ground, a massive, unmoving monument to the sheer audacity of prehistoric life. 20th, Brachiosaurus, the high-altitude giant. We end our journey with a legend. Brachiosaurus was the dinosaur that broke our perception of height. Unlike other sauropods that held their necks horizontally, Brachiosaurus was built like a giraffe, with front legs longer than its back legs. This allowed it to reach the tops of trees that no other creature could touch, standing over 13 meters tall, the height of a 4-story building. It was a creature of high-altitude elegance, surveying the world from a vantage point that no other land animal has ever matched. It was the crown jewel of the Jurassic, a towering silhouette against the ancient sun, reminding us that once, long ago, the Earth belonged to the giants. And we? We are just lucky enough to walk in their footsteps. 20 giants, 20 masters of a world that feels more like myth than history. We look at these fossils and we see monsters, but they weren't nightmares. They were the peak of what life can achieve when given millions of years and a planet without limits. They lived, they breathed, and they ruled for far longer than humans have even existed. From the scythe claws of the Therizinosaurus to the earth-shaking weight of Argentinosaurus, these titans prove that nature is the ultimate engineer. They remind us that the ground we walk on today was once the hunting ground of leviathans, and the sky we look up at was once filled with wings the size of planes. The era of these giants is gone, buried under layers of rock and time. But their legacy remains, a reminder that we are just a small chapter in the epic story of Earth. A story of power, scale, and a majesty that defies human imagination. The next time you look at a bird in the sky or a lizard in the grass, remember, greatness is in their blood. And once, they were the kings of everything. Thank you for traveling back in time with us. Which of these titans would you least want to meet in a dark alley? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, or the Mosasaurus might come for you next. Until next time.